You should know that everything that exists, it's exactly the way God wants it to be. Even though our behavior, our actions are governed and dictated by ourselves, but that is the will of God. Ketzad, for instance. Just as the Creator wants that fire and wind should go upward, and based on the laws of gravity, water and earth go downward. Vagalgul sovev, the eagle, and the world rotates in a circular manner, the rotation of the earth. Identically, all of the species in the world, each one behaves exactly the way God wants. The dog behaves as the dog is supposed to behave, the cat, and any other species. Exactly the way God wants them to behave. Identically, God wants that one's own behavior should be governed by his own governance. And all his actions are determined by his own initiative. No one's going to compel him to do anything. It's only all is self-motivated and all based on his own understanding. With all the intelligence of human beings endowed, with his emotional makeup, whatever it is, that coalescing of all the different characteristics of a human being, his intellect, he makes decisions exactly how he wants to live his life and how he wants to process things. Lefichoch. Now, this is the punchline. If man, every aspect of his life is governed by his decisions. So let's say a person's born with bad genes. So that's not up to him. Meaning he has high cholesterol. He's diabetic. Other genetic defects. There's multiple sclerosis. There's epilepsy. Whatever these things are, that's not up to. However, within those issues, there's choice. How do I live my life? Some people, today they have, self-assisted suicides. People, they can't deal with their issues and they choose that they want to be taken out, but that's their decision. Nobody's going to take a person's life unless he initiates and signs that do not resuscitate, or signs that he wants to actually bring about certain ends, but that's his decision. There's nothing in our life. You say, what about a person's incarcerated and you're in prison? So your decision is very limited, but but within that context of confinement, you still have free choice. At every level, we have free choice. What are the parameters of those choice? It's limited. Lefichach donen also lefi masov. Therefore, one is judged based on his actions. Im osa tova. Tovas. Tova, if a person did good. Why did you do good? You did good because you initiated the good. Metivin lo, therefore you're deserving of what? To be rewarded. Vim osa ra, and if a person chose to do evil, merin lo, he'll be punished. Because it was only due to his initiative that end result came about, whether it's good or bad. Husha novi omer, and this is what the prophet says, miyetchem hoises oslechem. It's only due to your own handiwork this comes about. As we always say, the way you make your bed, that's the way you sleep. And that's what it means. Every aspect of our lives, good or bad, unless it's predestined, it's due to our choices. For instance, we have the concept of tzaddik v'ralo. Good people suffer. Evil people thrive. That has nothing to do with them. That's God choosing what format they're going to live their life. God wrote that narrative. But within that narrative, a person has the ability to make choices and what the end result is based on his initiatives. The The prophet says they've chosen their ways. King Solomon says, rejoice the youth in your youth. Meaning, when you're young, we believe we can get away with anything. That's what we believe. But he says, ultimately, you should rejoice in your youth. However, don't be foolish. Because ultimately, everything is going to come to the day of reckoning. So therefore, if you have the ability to take initiatives, make sure the initiatives are good initiatives, and not something that you're actually going to actually have liability and be punished for. There's an expression: youth is wasted on the young. Why? They have ability, they have energy, they have idealism, but what do? They believe. They brought on the invincible. They could do anything. But it's due to their immaturity or lack of experience in life that they don't utilize their endowed gifts and apply them as they should be applied. A person who already has experience of life, if he only did have another chance to redo his life, he would behave differently because he's more astute. He has a greater grasp and understanding of what works and what doesn't work. So therefore, King Solomon says, Smach bocheb b'yaldusecho, young one, rejoice in your childhood, meaning in your adolescence. Because I call you over, everything's going to be brought to judgment. There's going to be a day of reckoning. So if there's a day of reckoning and you have the energy to do the right thing, make the right decision, not the wrong decision. Kloma dashish b'yotcha koach lasos, v'oser ato litin esadin. Therefore, be smart. Don't delude yourself to think that you're going to get away with things. I'll give you an example. A person is young and he doesn't eat healthy, doesn't exercise. So what happens? When you're young, you don't feel the effects of an unhealthy diet, of being sedentary. You don't feel it. But if you continue that behavior up to a certain point, when you reach a certain age, all that abuse that you abused yourself, eating-wise, lifestyle-wise, it's going to come to roost at a certain age. Except the young person doesn't feel it yet, because things happen naturally, and he has such a reserve of many things, but ultimately, the moment that reserve becomes slightly depleted or becomes undermined, he's going to feel the consequences of that misbehavior that he had when he was younger. So just as in the physical sense, you actually ultimately, as they say, you have the consequence of misbehavior or irresponsibility, of being negligent, identically within the spiritual realm, although you may get away with many things when you're young, but ultimately it's going to come to haunt you. What's an old fool? An old fool means he never woke up. There's an expression, some people never grow up. When he was a young fool. Now when he's old, he's an old fool. People very often learn from their mistakes. You learn from life's lessons. Some people never learn, and they just keep repeating the same mistake. And there's an expression, as if they live with their head in the sand. If they'd only look themselves in the mirror to see that they're not where they should be, whatever corrections you can make the corrections. Financially, you may not be able to make the correction. But as a human being, as a Jew, as anything, you can definitely make corrections. Why don't you make the corrections? Either they're in a state of denial because it's too painful to recognize to what degree you failed and you delude yourself, or some people, as they say, their personalities may be, they never wake up. Never wake up. You meet a person, 40 years later, he's saying over the same foolish joke. You figure after a while it gets stale. He's still shooting the breeze, the same nonsense, the same foolishness. Yeah, but life is more than being a buffoon and being the center of attraction, and everybody's laughing at you, not with you. That's the way it is. Well, life's all you have attention. That's all. But that's not what life's all about. Life has greater value than to get somebody's attention. That's an older person. I always say this. A young person, he reads certain material, which may give him insights in life, but that person is not impressed because he feels whatever those insights have no relevance to him, he'll succeed regardless. I'll give you an example. Person buys a computer and there's a warranty and it's an expensive computer. This person thinks, and you have to put the computer together based on the instruction manual. Person thinks he knows it. He'll put it together not as with the instruction manual. And it says that if you put it together not following instructions, the warranty doesn't cover. And it malfunctions, they're not going to return your money. Some people, they think they know it all. They don't have to read the manual. They're too lazy to read the manual. It's too tedious. He's not that detailed oriented. But you realize if you want the computer to work, you got to follow the manual. They wrote the manual for that. It's not the average person is average intelligence, therefore they need a manual. Even you, who you think you're more than above average, you also have to read the manual. If not, the computer doesn't work as it should work. And if it actually is damaged, you're not going to get your money back. Life is no different. King David says, Mikom lamde hiskalti. I've learned from all those. Anybody I could learn from, I learned from. What's right, what's wrong, I've learned from everyone. Nobody's born with life's experiences. You have to learn. You have to have role models. And there are good role models. But you have to open your eyes and appreciate that you could draw and learn from these well springs of people's behavior. Even the wrong, you learn not to behave that way. When people, they live in their own little cocoon, and they only have tunnel vision, and all they see is what they want to see. Outside of that, they don't want to see anything else. So how does a young person, what's the best way to influence a young person? Young people are drawn, or anybody, to a special role model. If a person is a role model and he represents special qualities and characteristics and behavior, that young person, despite his immaturities, will be influenced by that role model. And younger people reading abstract information, it's not sufficient. They have to be impressed. What impresses a young person is a person who succeeded in his life. He senses that person's special. So therefore, when you have teachers who teach in school, if the student sees that teacher as a model of what he would want to be in the future, that teacher will actually be very impressionable on that student. That student is going to be motivated. Why? Because he wants to satisfy that teacher or succeed as that teacher succeeded, whatever it may be. Doesn't make a difference. Years ago, there was a pitcher who was never into baseball. I think his name was White Gooden. Yeah, he was the janitor in Ramaz also. When the off season was, he used to be the security guy at Ramaz. This guy Mike Gooden. Okay, he would help Bob on Yom Noraim, Rosh Hashanah, Yom Kippur, usher in the people and usher him out.
I knew that was coming.
Okay, see that. So White Gooden, he was a phenomenal pitcher. And I remember people had said, people are role models. People are heroes. White Gooden was a hero by the young people. But who was White Gooden? He was a drug addict. He was an alcoholic. But in this one niche, he was one of a kind. And he was the hero of the youth. When you see a person in that very positive frame, whatever he is, the totality of the person is an influence. His other behavior styles, his patterns. You don't want people to be influenced with the other behavior. Maybe to be a good pitcher, but you understand, once a young person is drawn into that, he takes the whole picture, and he's impacted by the whole picture. So whenever you have role models, you have to make sure the role model, the totality of the person, nobody's perfect. But what's overtly obvious is positive. And if it's positive, that's the kind of teacher you want to have for your child. or you want to have that kind of professor to motivate you, to inspire you to actually follow in this particular area.
I'd like to say something to Larry.
Established that the human being is the only species that has a choice to live his life as he chooses, positive or negative. Not to be wealthy or poor, not to be strong or weak. That's predestined, certain things. However, in terms of good and evil, that's within the choice of a person. Okay? The question is, if God knows the future, and God, now how does God know the future? Because God is in the future. God has seen and knows exactly what your decision is going to be. Is that contradictory to free choice? Larry, you hear the question. That's the Rambam. Now, that's the question he's posing. Shema Tomar, LaKadosh Baruch Hu Yodea Kol Ma Sheyeh, V'Kodem Sheyeh Yeda Shezeh Yetzadik or Rosha. God knows what's going to be, and before the person's even born, he knows this person in the future will be a tzaddik, devoutly righteous, or a Rosha evil. Ole Yeda. Im Yeda Shu Yetzadik. If he knows he's going to be a tzaddik, Yef Shelo Yetzadik. If he knows he's going to be tzaddik, there's no way that person cannot be a tzaddik. Vim toma sheyeda sheyetzadik, shef sheyetz rosho, and you say no. He knows he'll be a tzaddik, but it's possible he could be a rosha. If that's the case, that means he doesn't know. That means there's something God doesn't know. Harei lo yeda dover aburio. So how do we reconcile that? If God knows you're going to be a tzaddik, and you cannot be anything but what God knows, so what? Where does it leave room for your choice? You have to be what God knows you're going to be. The answer is very simple. Larry, I'll let you answer the question.
A lot simpler for you, Rabbi. I'm all ears.
When we say God knows the future, God only knows exactly what you've done, what you will do in the future. You've done it. But God has no bearing on your choice to do or not to do. If that's the case, God's knowing has no bearing on one's choice. God, you have choice. But because of your choice, and he's aware what choice you will make, but the choice you made is only due to your initiative. So we're talking here post facto. He knows the post facto, not initially. That he puts you in a position that you can't do but only that. Then you have no choice. But if you can do whatever you want, but he just knows your decision what it will be, because he knows what choice you made, has no bearing on your choice. Very simple. Therefore, you don't mix apples and oranges. It has nothing to do with it.
Rabbi, should we assume?
At the beginning of time, Adam is the father of all mankind. He showed him every generation from then till the end of time. Every generation, it's wise men. It's righteous, everything from beginning to the end. And he showed him a soul that the soul was only meant to live a few hours. And Adam recognized it's a very special soul. So Adam asks God, whose soul is this? He says, it's a very special soul, but I've only designated for it to live a few hours. And therefore, its specialness is not going to manifest itself in reality in life. Adam says, I'm supposed to live 1,000 years. I'm willing to give 70 years of my life to contribute to that special soul. And God says, if that's what you're willing to do, that person now will be a living, viable human being, and he will live your 70 years. Who is that special soul? King David. David HaMelech had one of the most special souls that ever existed, except it was only meant to live a few hours. Only because of the endowment of Adam was King David able to be a viable and to be one of a kind of king. He's the psalmist. His descendant is what? Is going to be ultimately the Redeemer of the world. That's Messiah, Mashiach ben David, the anointed one who descends from David, from King David, the psalmist. All that was only possible because Adam endowed 70 years of his life that he gave to the special soul. But you know, it's interesting. As I'm talking, Adam failed. It's the most serious failing in the history of this world. Adam, by eating of the tree of knowledge, all the suffering, all the desecration of God's name, till the end of time is due to Adam's making a bad choice. But you want to know something? Ultimately, who's going to make the correction at the end of time? Mashiach ben David. He's the only one qualified to bring about the redemption. Why was David able to become who he became? Because Adam gave 70 years of his life. So Adam, although he failed so seriously, but his 70 years that he gave away ultimately will bring about the ultimate level of correction of what we call Kiddush Hashem, a sanctification of his name, only due to the 70 years which Adam endowed to the special soul, which was the soul of King David, which was David HaMelech.